Chapter 2. Mr. Nathan, Harry Spitzenbayer began, we must change the strategy on our patients. Do you have any suggestions? Nathan asked, pretending to be very interested. Yes, I do. In fact, more than one. Firstly, I'd like to point out that the security guards keep beating our patients, but they have to be in good shape for my examination. I must insist that they stop doing that. I will talk to them, Nathan said, frowning and tapping his fingers on the table. I would also appreciate it if coma patients stopped disappearing. We must continue with their examinations. We cannot act so recklessly. If this continues, the project will be doomed to failure. Nathan stood still, staring at the wooden devil statue on the table. Meanwhile, Harry Spitzenbayer was using virtual reality glasses via the chip in his head, trying to connect to the computer placed in his bionic hand. He ran the MTL application and performed a quick scan of the brain frequency of his evil boss. Then he imagined killing him slowly and excruciatingly. Nathan's eyelids bulged when he heard the last phrase. The project will be doomed. You will be doomed, you fucking Fritz. How dare you say that? A storm was brewing in the mind of the psycho Nathan, but he decided it would be better to stay calm. What do you propose? Nathan asked in a calm voice. I would certainly not want this to happen, after having invested so much. He also forgot to mention that the organs of the last 12 victims had been sold on the black market, which had earned him considerable profits. The other survivors had been lynched in the Red Room. I have an acquaintance in Germany who is a great specialist. He, like myself, is full of great ideas but, of course, cannot implement them. I would like to invite him here. I believe he would greatly benefit this project. If you say so, then I support it. There is just one thing. I would like to contact him from the outside, for security reasons, of course. Are you planning to be outside for long? No. I will give our new team member a call and that's it. It will be quick. And also, I need my last patient Ryan to stay alive. I have immersed him in an artificial coma, but I will end it before our next experiment. By the way, when will we get a new patient? What else do you want, dickhead? Nathan thought to himself. New patient. Soon. No more than a few days. We have a long list of candidates, he said, running his hand through his perfectly coiffured, expensive hairstyle. Anything else? No, sir. Thank you for listening to what I had to say, said Drive Spitzenbayer. Nathan left without saying goodbye. I have to come up to the surface, as soon as possible, he thought. I have a table for two booked at the best restaurant in the city. I can't make my wife wait, as it won't be long before some scum introduces himself to her, noticing such a beautiful lady sitting alone. If that happens, I'll have to tell Steve to drown him in the sea, like he did to the last guy. How can I possibly deal with so many problems? Maybe I should watch a recording of a broadcast about me. Maybe not. I lied in that show, like I always do. Nathan walked fast towards the elevator. Harry Spitzenbayer was also going up to the surface, but with different thoughts. You total loser. He thought. You will be the first to turn up your toes, and so will all the other losers in this dungeon. He didn't mention Ryan, who had been successfully sent into an artificial coma with the use of the new technology. The brain of every human or animal emits its own unique signal, which can be captured by a highly sensitive device. Then it allows you to enter their consciousness and take them over. Veni, vidi, vici, Harry Spitzenbayer murmured under his breath. It is not my fault that the Yankees in this lab don't suspect anything about the progress we have made. Meanwhile, while Harry was bursting at the seams with happiness and Nathan was heading to a restaurant for a casual, but expensive dinner with his wife, Jake Winfield was sitting in front of the TV in an armchair with a lunchbox on his knees, eating chicken breast with organic rice and spinach on the side, while sipping grape juice. He always tried to cook at least a couple pounds of chicken at once, as he didn't enjoy making himself food every day. Then he would place the cooked food in the lunch boxes and store them in his refrigerator, which was already crammed with big supplies of spinach and grape juice. Apart from this, his diet also included a variety of food supplements, amino acids, protein drinks and bars. Any other person would probably be worried if they found out that there was a murderer living somewhere on the outskirts of Silver City, killing varmints of the higher class. But Jake didn't care about what he did for a job almost every day. He swallowed a dry bite of chicken breast, grabbed his juice with one hand and turned up the TV volume with another. It was time for anyone sitting at home, or at a bar somewhere, to watch the daily broadcast of Lies. But before that they had to watch the ads for the latest phone models. After all, you just simply cannot carry on living with your old phone. The public would think of you as a Cro-Magnon, who is not up to date with the latest fashion trends. The ad for the healthiest water in the entire Milky Way galaxy followed, but for some reason, it didn't mention anything about the plastic bottles the water came in. What if those bottles are made of recycled plastic, which was situated near radioactive waste in some third world country before being recycled, thought Jake. Is this supposed to promote the healthy lifestyle, or is it a direct guide for blood cancer? No, I cannot be so paranoid. I might as well join some crazy vegan group then, he reflected. His train of thoughts was interrupted by the mesmerizing music of the intro to the evening news, which was followed by the host's rant about the murder of one of the city's biggest gangsters, Mendoza. A reporter was standing at the scene in front of the entrance to his villa, which was covered in stop tape. She stated that the police refused to comment on anything, but allegedly an undercover agent had leaked information that Mendoza was killed by his rivals, who wished to gain control of the entire city's drug market. Later, the reporter reminded viewers that Mendoza had been charged with the possession of illegal weapons and drugs before. However, she said nothing about the fact that thanks to corrupt prosecutors, he was only ordered to wear an ankle monitor, but could live in his villa. The problem was that special services were able to trace 2 pallets of cocaine transported from one place to another, but it was impossible for them to track the person who paid for them. But this case had been messy from the very beginning. When Miguel, nicknamed Pitbull, the right-hand man of Mendoza, got arrested, he didn't say a word in the interrogation room. Later, a policeman found him dead in the cell. The official cause for his death was recorded as suicide. The officials stated that he had slit his wrists. For Jake, this seemed strange, watching news on TV about the person he had killed just a few hours ago. At the end of the report, the news presenter discussed the upcoming mayoral elections and the growing intrigue between the 2 candidates. Many viewers wondered if people actually cared which one of them would win, just to get the city into even deeper debt. This broadcast was followed by the world news, with shocking reports of floods, forest fires, or buses full of people driving off the road. A viewer could watch every single news item about bomb explosions, pandas that refuse to mate, and whales stranding on the shores, and end up being scared or paranoid about all the crap coming into their head from the TV every day. Annoyed with the news, Jake began to surf through the channels, looking for something more entertaining. This is how he discovered the Dibby Dowley show. When the musicians stopped playing, the host announced, "Now, please welcome the main guest of our show, one of the richest people in the world and definitely the richest person in the studio, the wonderful Nathan Artrott." He said it with a fake smile. Then, loud applause and crowd cheering followed. The god of the capitalistic world entered the studio, waving and smiling, knowing very well that he was only doing this to sell more products. There is no shame in some occasional humiliation, he thought. Who else is going to buy the newest electronics, if not the people in the studio or at home, sitting in front of their holographic TVs? Dibby Dowley shook his hand and both of them sat down. They were very good at pretending to have a warm conversation, just like politicians in similar circumstances. Cameras were flashing, the ratings were going up. Before the show, Dibby had already thought about how many new followers, and their positive comments, he would get after that show. He was feeling euphoric, just thinking about his growing fame and the money he was about to get. "It's wonderful to have you here, Mr. Artrott. Thank you for having me. You are one of the most famous faces in the business world. Tell us, is it hard, to be constantly presenting new products and traveling to the biggest cities in the world?" "Each day is different," Nathan began indifferently, "but trusting yourself and achieving your goals is worth it. How do you deal with stress, or do you not experience it?" Dowley said, waving his hand to the side as if he was chasing away an aggressive dog. This made the audience laugh. "You have to find some sort of release for this, whether it be sport, meditation, or anything else. Healthy diet and regular sleep are also very important," he said in a calm voice, as if he was an Eastern monk with a polished and shiny bald head. "Chopping people into parts also helps," Nathan thought to himself and pleasantly smiled. The audience started applauding. "He's so nice," an old lady said to her friend. "It sounds impressive, Mr. Artrott," Dowley concluded with a fake smile. "It's simply a key to the righteous life. Let's talk about how you started. How did you manage to earn your first million?" When Dowley asked this, Nathan could instantly visualize the course of the events that took place 15 years ago. "The old man and his wife are tied. They will soon be dead from heart attacks," Mendoza said to Nathan. "Two young pricks, eager to make money at any cost, came up with the idea to rob the house of one of the most famous antiques businessmen in the state. As soon as Nathan found out that he was investing all of his money in gold bars and coins, he decided to act. To his knowledge, all the expensive stuff was being kept in his luxurious 3-story house, but it was extremely difficult to get inside. Almost all of his neighbors had surveillance cameras. To go there at night was too much of a risk, as it would be too noisy, but to be successful meant acting with speed and without fear. So one day, Mendoza's gang members covered the van with the promotional stickers of an internet delivery service company. As planned, the two men made their way to the gate, pressed the call button and introduced themselves as the representatives of the company. They were supposed to fix the faults of some wires in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, they said, the main port for the internet cables was located in their property, and they had to get inside. The old lady paused for a minute, but opened the gates. Half of the job was done. The whole area was surrounded by a high brick fence with dense conifers planted around it. Their neighbors couldn't see them. Nathan and Mendoza were not worried about the surveillance cameras, because they knew they would grab the server when leaving the property. When they drove up to the house, they put on their masks. Then they jumped out of the van and ran towards the main entrance of the house. Nathan quickly knocked the old lady to the ground, tied her hands and stuffed a patch of cloth into her mouth. This really impressed Mendoza. Meanwhile, the old man was coming down the stairs and murmuring something, but he was also quickly knocked to the ground. They punched and beat the couple until they told them the code of their safe. The robbers then immediately emptied it and took the most valuable antiques. Realizing that they had got themselves into a very dirty business, they decided to end everything on the spot. It was Nathan's baptism. He killed the old man with the hammer. He then gave the hammer back to Mendoza and got into the van. As he was walking away, he could hear the muffled sound of a breaking skull. Nathan felt disgusted at himself. However, as time went on, these memories faded. After pausing for a moment, Nathan spoke again. I remember it as if it were yesterday. My father gave me a chance. He lent me money to open my first bar. It was a simple seedy place, not in the best neighborhood. When I first saw it, I said to myself that the results of this project would depend completely on me. So, here I am today. I would really like to see everyone working as hard as me. Yes, it was true that Nathan purchased the bar with the money he officially borrowed. He liked to think in detail about everything he said. This is why he was different from Mendoza, who was stupid enough to now be dead. Nevertheless, he didn't mention that he was also selling drugs and laundering money in that bar, which his uncle from the 2nd precinct covered up. You are truly an inspiring person, Dowley continued to pander. Later, they talked about his family, his great sense of style and, finally, his charity work. All the older ladies shed a tear when the great Nathan finished his story about his eye-opening journey to India. Then he spoke about his charitable work and its importance to the world. After this, everyone's hearts started to finally melt with the love for this savior of mankind. Everything's perfect, said the lead producer of the show to himself. A month ago, his team received an offer to stage a perfect talk show starring Nathan. The goal was to raise the sales and shares of the corporation he owned. So, the show's team decided to follow the time-served tactic of creating the perfect hero. The subject needed to be shown as being strong, successful, good-looking and kind. The screenwriters put together a perfectly polished script for the show in a couple of days. A few rehearsals, a few corrections, a few edited sections. Professional actors were hired to play the studio audience. The final, perfect product emerged, for which Nathan paid just over $1 million. The day after the show aired, the company's profit was expected to increase by tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. Dowley and his team had many years of experience in pushing individuals of all types and caliber to unexpected career heights, or trying to maintain their stable positions. They didn't care about who they were working for as long as they were paying them. They would have even promoted Martians. It could have been a politician running for Congress. Their victory would be guaranteed. It could have been a businessman, like Nathan. Their sales would skyrocket. It could have been a musician. They would not need to worry about the sales of their albums or concerts. Even if their songs were dreadful, they would become more famous and more rich. All they had to do was put the money on the table and the team started working instantly. Ask the final question, Dowley heard in his earpiece. Mr. Artrot, could you tell us something about the new mobile phone that will be on the market soon? What will it look like? Could you tell us its release date? Nathan smirked and held up a rehearsed pause for a second. It's a secret, isn't it? But I will tell you this. The new product will have significantly better parameters than all the previous models. It will be more comfortable and stylish with a better price than anything our competitors can offer. This product will soon become an extension of your life. There was thunderous applause before Nathan even finished talking. Then, Dowley stood up and shook Nathan's hand. Before the show had even ended, Jake was already snoring loudly. The first day of his vacation had come to an end.